Welcome to our event. My name is Sally Kader. I am the president and the founder of the International Federation for Peace and Sustainable Development. We are here at the United Nations because my husband, Raf, whom you will meet soon, he is a member of the staff of the United Nations and also a diplomat, and he's been here for the past 36 years. So I was a child bride. Even though I'm against them, just age-wise.
The thing that you can give away.
So we are here today for a very important subject, and I am very honored to have a wonderful friend who is co-sponsoring this event with us, and it's the ambassador from Guatemala, whom you will hear him giving you a welcoming remark very shortly. We are talking about a very important subject that no one talks about, not enough anyway. And I will explain as I am going with you that I had the privilege to see the effect of this particular device that is the hearing aid for the people who are impaired. I just came back from a trip to Lebanon to introduce them to the government, and I saw firsthand in the refugee camp and the face and the eyes and the laugh and the face that lit up when the child heard the sounds for the first time. So we have a major task, but I'm so overwhelmed with joy that there is such people like Bill Austin, who has pioneered, and he's all over the place, and the world in helping. The big, wonderful news is that we have here with us is the 42nd President of the United States, Bill Clinton, that we all know. And he's another major humanitarian, and he will be with us addressing you shortly. So now I would like to give the floor to a wonderful person, the Ambassador Jorge from Guatemala. Please.
Thank you, Sally.
Welcome him, please. He's co-hosting you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sally. Can you hear me? Yes, more or less. There we go. Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for that applause, which is for the cause, not for me. Tonight in this important high-level side event on hearing health, which is a matter of importance to many people's lives and the quality of their life. I want to recognize all of you, both panelists and participants, for their goodwill, but certainly for their good courage to help in a very humanitarian cause. I particularly want to pay praise to President William Clinton, who is about to come. He's in the other room. And certainly to the International Foundation for Peace and Sustainable Development, for the Sam Cater Memorial Foundation, and definitely to the Starkey Foundation, Mr. Bill Austin, who is also with President Clinton in the next room, his wife Tanny, and the son William, who will be sitting with us. So why is Guatemala sponsoring this event? This key event, actually, because we feel that the international community has finally recognized the in different fora of the United Nations that there's a need for states to create favorable conditions for national, regional, and international cooperation in many, many areas. Certainly, health is one of them. We attach great importance to cooperation with international organizations and civil societies like the ones you form part of. And non-governmental organizations are also an expression not only of civil society, but of the people taking a role in their life of the rest of the people in societies. The issue of hearing health assumes further importance in the context of the 2030 Agenda for Development, Sustainable Development. According to the World Health Organization, hearing loss is the commonest of all sensory disabilities, and in children has a direct impact on access to good quality education. Hence, including people with ear disabilities and hearing loss is essential to foster Sustainable Development Goal 3, which calls for good health and well-being. I welcome again to all this house, the House of World Parliament, which belongs to all of us, humanity, and thank the distinguished panelists and you for coming together in such a noble cause to discuss the importance of investing in health and as a vehicle to attain more secure world and sustainable development. Thank you so much, Sally. You can always count with me.
Thank you, Ambassador Jorge Skinner. Forgive me because I did not tell you all of his accomplishment. It's all there, and for the time, to save a little bit time so we can hear more of Bill Clinton, I am rushing a bit. So forgive me, Ambassador, for that. So now we have the CEO of this organization, the International Federation for Peace and Sustainable Development, Mr. Ralph Gator, who has served here. So he will give us a few minutes of welcoming remarks.
Good afternoon, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ralph Kader. I am the CEO of the International Federation for Peace and Sustainable Development. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to this very important high-level meeting entitled Ear Care and Hearing Health, a vehicle for global peace and sustainable development. I would like to extend a warm welcome to His Excellency Mr. Jorge, the Ambassador of Guatemala, the Permanent Representative to the United Nations, to the CEO of the Starkey Foundation, Mr. William Austin, and Mrs. Tani Austin, the dynamic person who's behind all of this activity of Starkey Foundation, who's doing fantastic and amazing work all over the world. And to my wife, Sally Kader, the founder and the president, is the pillar and the force behind the success of the International Federation for Peace and Sustainable Development. In whatever capacity she is working, she's always promoting the UN principle, whether with heads of states, working with youth, or high-level meetings such as today. A most heartful welcome in order to our esteemed keynote speaker today, the 42nd President of the United States, Bill Clinton. Thank you to the United Nations Office of Partnership for their ongoing support. Sally and I have long been inspired by the work of the Starkey Foundation team and have valued their collaboration and friendship for years. For more than 50 years, the Starkey Foundation has led the charge in bringing the gift of hearing to the people in more than 100 countries so the world can hear. According to the World Health Organization, more than 340 million people have disabled hearing loss today, and a great proportion of them are women in developing countries. Sally and I have recently returned from Starkey mission to Lebanon to discuss hearing loss with the Deputy Prime Minister of Lebanon, who is also the Minister of Health. Our collaboration with them to expand the foundation research in Lebanon and also to extend it to North Africa and to the Middle East, as to be complementing with Starkey activity in South America and in the Far East. Hearing loss dramatically impact human society and economics. Providing the gift of hearing to those in need will help us deliver the promise of the Sustainable Development Goal related to the health, gender equality, and the power of partnership for us all. And now, I give the floor to Sally Kader to proceed with the program.
Thank you, Ralph, for your kind work. I couldn't have done it without him. Behind every great woman, there is a man. Now, I would like to see if we are ready. Okay. We are really honored to have President Bill Clinton present among us. I am going to introduce to you that, not that he needs any introduction. We are really honored to have President Bill Clinton present here among us today. His commitment to improving the health of millions, strengthening the local economies, and making progress toward international peace through his foundation. He has dedicated his life to replacing violence with human rights, degradation with sustainability, and war with diplomacy. His fight for peace aligns with the mission of my work and our organization work. President Clinton, I personally want to thank you for all the timeless and tireless time that you have spent improving the world. We are all remembering the time that you were our president. As a Lebanese American citizen, I had voted for you.
Thank you.
And I voted for the amazing wife that you have, Miss Hillary Clinton. I don't know how I'm going to go home now, but I cannot thank you enough for being here with us. And now I would like to leave the floor for you to say some of your words and your knowledge about the Hearing Foundation and Mr. Velost.
Well, thank you very much. First, Sally, thank you for the introduction. I voted the same way you did. Ambassador, thank you for co-sponsoring this event. I thank all the others up here for the work they do. And I'm very honored to be here with Bill Austin and with his entire family who are here. This is an important subject that I think I had completely
overlooked as an instrument or an obligation of international development until I met Bill and Tanny Austin. When I was a young governor, my state had a highly regarded school for the deaf and school for the blind, which a famous Indian novelist Medvedev went all across the world to attend when he was 14 years old. But I never thought about it until I met the Austins in terms of what the Clean Global Initiative and I personally should be doing. And I realized there were 300 million people, thanks to them, who had severe hearing loss, almost 40 million children in developing countries. And I have watched this work for a long time, and I applaud the United Nations for giving us a forum for doing this. It's very important to note that children in developing countries are basically 7 times more likely to experience hearing loss because of avoidable conditions that routine checkups and treatments would take care of in countries with comprehensive health care system. And then they wind up on a downward spiral because many of these countries also can't educate them properly or give them the kinds of options they deserve. The Starkey Hearing Foundation is proving every day that it doesn't have to be this way. Bill's been in this field for more than 50 years. In the 1970s, he started giving away free hearing aids to anyone who asked him. I don't know why he's not flat broke. They went into a local drugstore and wrote Starkey Fund on their hearing aid box. They could send it to him and he would take care of them. From the beginning of his career in business in the 1970s, they have always given away a significant percentage of their profits to help people who needed hearing and couldn't afford to get it. Almost 2 million people now have hearing aids in more than 100 countries. I'm very proud that about half that number has occurred in the last 7 years. I saw my first Starkey hearing mission in Haiti in 2010 in the aftermath of the earthquake when I was representing the United Nations as Special Envoy. And they came down to first replace the hearing aids and the supplies, the batteries and other supplies of those who had lost them in the earthquake. But they did what they routinely did. They asked that the children in the School for the Deaf in Port-au-Prince be brought in for tests. As I remember, there were 225 or so kids who came through. Only 2 left without hearing. That should bother everybody in this room who has a sense of obligation to the children of the world. Just think about that. 99% of those kids could have been doing something else with their lives, could have been getting a more normal education, a more normal life, if they had been properly tested and providing the equipment. I have since had the honor to go, often with my daughter, to hearing missions they've held in Uganda and Kenya and Zambia and Colombia, where I saw class after class of uniformed students from schools for the deaf brought in, and all the students who left with hearing. When I was in Bogota at the mission, I think there was only one person that was literally beyond the reach of any known technology. Now, if you think about it, this is a problem of manageable cost with a proven delivery system that has a community-based solution to promote hearing health and to maintain the supply chain. One of the things I really respect about what they've done is that they train people. They've even established a hearing academy in Zambia. They've already trained people from 11 countries. But they're in more than 50 countries now, and every place they operate, they have local people running this operation so that it is sustainable. And if you think about all the problems that we're trying to solve, and if you think about the ones we did solve with the Millennium Development Goals, virtually without exception, someone had a model to solve the problem that could be replicated. You had a funding stream, an affordable solution, and a system of people that were community-based who could solve the problem. That's where we are now. When we were talking in 2010, I said, this is really impressive. How many of these do you do a year? He said 50,000. I said, look at this model. It's great. You could double that. He looked at me like I was crazy. Because after all, I was talking about his money, not mine. But in September, they came to the Clinton Global Initiative and promised to do 1 million hearing aids in a decade. They beat the target by 3 years. And I believe, I'm not positive, but I believe they'll go over 200,000 this year. This thing keeps growing. But pretty soon you'll get to the 3 million. And if they had enough extra help, they could train more people, involve more missions, and do this in a hurry. You know, now that I have young grandchildren, I can see how much difference a month makes in a child's life. How the developmental experiences you have or don't have in a year could shape decades of your life. This is something we can do and do in a hurry. I'm glad he's being honored. Lord knows he deserves it, as does his wife, as do his family, as do all the people who work in these missions. But think about what this does, not just in terms of giving people hearing, but it gives you the dignity of independence and the feeling of empowerment. You actually have choices. In many, many developing countries, if you can't hear, you can't get an education, you can't get advanced training, and you can't get a job paying a decent income. The world is awash today with anger and resentment and division. People afraid of people who aren't like them, are looking for somebody to blame for their own misfortune. And the merchants of division often find receptive ears among people whose lives could be better, but who get up every day and begin the day by looking in a mirror and thinking every one of my tomorrows is going to be like yesterday. When you see a child hear for the first time, when you see a parent see a child hear for the first time, and believe finally they have become a better mother, a better father, they have done something, they took this kid to this, they had no idea what was going to happen half the time. Then they began to look for answers instead of anger, for empowerment instead of resentment, and they see cooperation instead of conflict. This is about way more than hearing. This is about what we want the world of the 21st century to look like. It is a microcosm of the epic struggle being played out in virtually every country on earth. It is one more example of why people all over the world that are being herded around because of their religion, their ethnicity, their race, their whatever, should be embraced. This is really important. Beyond the absolute wonder of the gift of hearing, this is something that works with a model that's replicable. Winston Churchill once inadvertently praised the UN that didn't exist yet when he said it was always better to talk than war. But at some point, the doing really matters. And doing is harder than talking. These people have figured out a model that works. It started in the mind and heart of one person. The generosity of then a small business person who couldn't bear to think that the children of poor working people in his community shouldn't have hearing aids if other kids did. It's a global phenomenon now that's community-based. There are so many of our challenges we should meet the same way. So I'm glad you're honoring him. I'm grateful that our paths crossed several years ago. You're honoring him. I'm grateful that our paths crossed several years ago. But I'm pleading with you, take this seriously. This is about the cheapest 100% deal you'll ever get. This is the chances of your being successful are not 99 and 100. They're 100 and 100 with this model. And I'm telling you, if you have never seen a child hear for the first time, and the sense that parents have that they're no longer failures for the first time, you can't imagine what it does. So thank you for honoring him and giving me a chance to say a few words about what they've done. Thank you very much.
Thank President Clinton. Thank you, President Clinton. To be doing this and appreciating the wisdom of a single man who have done the best to do to help humanity through his hearing aid and for the hearing impaired. Mr. Bill Austin, you've heard already about what he has done and he has accomplished 50 years ago. And he has helped over millions of people that we are shooting for that number soon. So we are really blessed and more than I can tell you, and you could see I'm gonna because I am really, really excited about giving him the recognition and the award from our organization, and we are blessed to be partnering with him, and only together we can make a difference in this world. Alone we cannot do it, but together we can do it, and that is also what you also say. Our organization is in 5 continents and 17 countries, and we also say connecting continent for peace. And I hope through all of this we will be doing more together, and we need all of you. I'm just waiting for a cue, so I would be giving a major award from my heart, and I know from all of your heart, to the wonderful Mr. Bill Austin, and I'm waiting for a cue from somewhere. But now I would like to give him the floor so he can say a few words for us. Please welcome Mr. Bill Austin.
Excuse me. Thank you. Well, okay, if we're waiting for the cue, I'll kill some time. First of all, you have to realize, as you probably do, I'm not a big deal. But none of us are. We're like grains of sand in the passage of time. But when we come together, we have the leverage to change the world. And that's what this is about. We discover what's inside of us if we take time to listen. Fortunately, I discovered those values very early in my life. And it wasn't my fault, and it wasn't that I was so smart, but we're all products of our environment and the families and the teaching that we grow up with. And I grew up with having a grandfather that I admired greatly, and he followed lessons he'd learned from his father, who was an orphan of the Civil War. As this boy was orphaned and had nothing and no one to care about him, his family was massacred and the cattle was stolen and the farm buildings were burned to the ground. He was picked up by a Union lieutenant who never forgot the boy was an orphan and willed him the land he earned for serving in the Civil War on the frontier. My great-grandfather took that land and became a successful farmer. To me, this man is a hero. He is a great hero. Not listed in the annals of the Civil War as a hero, not listed, not recognized anywhere, but he is a great hero. I believe in everyday heroes, people like all of you who do what needs to be done when it should be done are the great heroes in the world. Anyway, as he was cared about. He grew up in a grain mill working for his keep. Had never been paid, no money. And when he was 15 years old and old enough to leave, he received this land. And he had a way to get started. It gave him a start. It didn't make him an instant success. He wasn't willed a lot of money. It gave him a chance, and that's all most people want, is a chance to earn their own dignity and find their own contribution that they can make to the community. My great-grandfather became the first recorder of his county. He was a well-liked man and died a philanthropist, helping people in a small way that he could. My grandfather told me about his father. He said when he was 8 years old, what struck him about his father was the way he did things. He said people moved in 3.5 miles from them, and his father heard they had children and no cow. He told his son to take the best cow they had that produced the most milk and walk it over and give it to the people so those children might have milk. My grandfather Frank did that, Franklin. And when he returned, he said he noticed something. People would come to visit and children stood in the back as they were supposed to do while the guests took the seats. And he said his father never mentioned giving those people a cow. He never talked about it. And he never sought the people out to say, I'm the great man that gave you the cow. It was simply a matter for him that those children needed milk and he had more than one cow. My grandfather learned that lesson from his father, and he taught that lesson to me. So who is the hero? my grandfather, my great-grandfather? No, the lieutenant. Or was it the person that cared about the lieutenant enough to make him want to do that? Or was it the person who cared about that person? And it goes back and back in our history till we're all related, we're all cousins, we're all sharing the same DNA. It's inside everyone. But people are too busy today finding out what's wrong to discover what's right. We have to slow down, give people a chance to find out what's right, and there's only one way for them to find it. Only one way. You can't do it by treaties. People won't understand each other across borders and across different tribes. People have to meet face to face. They have to know that they're cared about and respected by hearing it in your voice. And when you respect the person and you give them a hand up, it's hard for them to hate you anymore and want to kill you. And they start to realize that after all, you're really all the same. And that brings understanding between people of the world. So when you have here this organization which wants to be a vehicle for peace, there is no better vehicle for peace than the ear, which is the road to the heart. Because you have to hear the voice to know what someone really means. I'm from the South, like President Clinton. You know, they say something down there quite frequently. Y'all come back, you hear? Well, you know what? When you hear that voice, you know they heard you. What they mean is you're welcome in our home. But what you really know when you hear the voice, you know whether they'd rather never see you again or they feel like you're part of the family because you can tell it in the voice. And that's what hearing gives us. It gives us the priceless language that makes us what we are. We have the finest computer in the world, our brain. It runs on language. Try to think without using language. If any of you can do that, I'll give you a large award. You can't do it. Our whole computer, our mind runs on language. That's how we relate to the past and have dreams of the future and wrestle with problems. So it's important to hear so we develop vocabulary, a large vocabulary, so we can use it for more complex expressions and thoughts. We allow a person to be all they can be. Everyone deserves that chance. And only together can we give people the chance that they deserve by working as a team, reflecting, caring, which brings the trust that is needed for peace. We must trust each other. And there can be no trust without respect and without caring first. You can't demand it. You can't dictate it by government rules or laws. You can only earn it by your conduct expressly with those you serve. So I believe we're blessed, those of us on this small team, because we have the very best vehicle to express love for another person when we enable them to be all they can be, to use their mind to solve their own problems, to use their mind and expression to be self-determinant and earn a living and have a family and be what they are for our world and find their art and share it with the community. We help people find themselves by teaching the lesson of caring. We help people find their potential by lifting them up. We are, so the world may hear, is really so the world may understand we're one human family. Together, we can have the future we want. Together, if we work at it, it's not a guarantee. It's an opportunity. We must work at it. We must invest. No investment, no gain. We must invest in tomorrow. And the best tomorrow we have is our people. We have to invest in the people, because the people that we invest in today will dictate the future. I don't have a lot of thoughts. I can keep talking. When is the cue? I didn't know I was supposed to pontificate. Thank you. Thank you. You want me to keep talking?
This is.
Well, nobody did. Did you do that?
Well, let me tell you. Isn't he awesome? Because I know when you feel something in your heart, you keep on going and talking because you are so passionate about it. So I wanted you to see the passion. So you did a great job. Thank you again. Well, I have a great surprise for you. I would like now to introduce someone you know, and she will be joining us any minute, and her name is Emilia Swalich. Please, Emilia, we would love to hear from you. Thank you. That's a surprise.
Oh, there we go. There it goes. I got it. Good afternoon. My name is Emilia Swalich, and I'm happy to be here today with all of you to recognize my grandfather's work of peace and development around the world. As some of you may know, when you go on a Starkey Hearing Foundation mission across the world, it is moving and incredible to witness someone getting to hear for the first time. As I go on these missions, I watch and look up to my grandfather. As I listen to him speak daily, this phrase that he says before we start the mission day sticks out to me in a particular way every time it is said. The team, the best of all. Everyone together, one family. People helping people. There is no better work and there is no better day, because today is the day we change lives. This quote means a lot to me because it makes me look at Starkey's work in a bigger perspective. Starkey's not just one person. It is a team of like-minded people passionately making the world a better place with a leader full of peace and wisdom guiding them. As we all come together on a mission trip, we are helping our people because us, as a world, we are one. We are doing this work and nothing could be any better because we are making the steps into a better tomorrow. This is how I look at Starkey and their work. Furthermore, how I look up to my grandfather. Another quote they use quite often is, "The sun never sets on Starkey Hearing Foundation." My grandpa never stops until the job is done. It will not be done until the world can hear again. And he's driven to complete this mission. He's developing a better world for us to live in. I'm so proud to say that Bill Austin is my grandfather, and I hope to grow up to follow in his footsteps and continue his legacy he started in 1970. I'm determined and driven to be like him and show the peace and development that he has made to my generation of people. I love you, Papa, and I'm so proud of you and everything you do. Thank you.
Emilia, thank you very much. As President Clinton said, he thanked not only Bill Austin, but Danny Austin and the whole family. So that's the evidence of that. It's a proof of how much he is cared for all the things that he is doing, and now we are part of your family. So thank you. Now talk about the thing that we were discussing before. I thought maybe we can have a few words from our next guest, and love to hear from you, Miss Sandra, and that I have met you before, And I would like to introduce you Her Excellency Madam Sandra Granger, First Lady of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana.
Well, thank you, Sally, for throwing me into the mix. And I'm here wondering what I should say, because I was expecting to participate in a panel discussion later on. But what I would like to do is endorse the comments that have been made for the work Starkey Hearing Foundation has done and continues to do, and for the vision of Bill and Tani Austin as they have gone through the world, giving us all a chance to hear. Starkey, I met Tani about 2 years ago when Sally first invited me to an event for the International Foundation for Peace and Sustainable Development. And we have basically never looked back, because Starkey started its work in Guyana last year, and they have really excited our population, both the few professionals we have, and given them a chance to hear. I also learned from Bill last year that hearing impairment influences the onset of Alzheimer's, which I never thought of before, but it's very logical once Bill explained it to me last year. And one memory of the impact of Starkey in my own country is the hearing given to a young man who had been born without ears. And I couldn't understand it till Bill explained that they made these head pieces, which they fit on the maxillary bone. And a young 22-year-old man who had never heard in his entire life was able to hear. And you cannot imagine the joy on that young boy's face. Because teasing him, I leaned forward and I said, "Troy, you're going to know everybody's business now." And he threw his head back and he laughed out loud. And that was the first thing that says, as Bill said, it is not only hearing as a sense, but also the connection with the rest of the world that we all need and we all desire. And as Sally said, it helps us to understand each other and to create more avenues for peace and development. Sally, is that my cue?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. I just did not think that we need all the introduction to talk how wonderful and how valuable the gift of hearing and the championship that Mr. Bill Austin did. And but now you know, for the ones that this is the first time they're hearing about this, now you have an idea, I hope a big idea, because it's all true and real, and it's an amazing opportunity for all of us to learn more about it. For this reason, I am thrilled and honored to be able to tell you what we are doing next. For more than 50 years, Bill has made an ending to the scourge of disabling hearing loss his life work. The Starkey Hearing Foundation uses the giving of the gift of hearing as a vehicle for caring for both people and societies affected by the epidemic. Partnerships such as ours are critical to the success of this mission. As individuals, our strength is limited. Together, we can accomplish what we set out to do. In the past decade, the Starkey Foundation has provided 1 million hearing aids to those who otherwise would not have access to them in more than 100 countries. And I'm repeating this because it is amazing numbers. When you say it as numbers, it's different when you really see it. Today, it is my great honor to present Bill Austin with an award on behalf of our International Federation for Peace and Sustainable Development, recognizing him and recognizing his life work. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give me the honor, stand up so I can present the award. All you are doing. And President Clinton. Now, I know President Clinton wants to leave, but I have a very small remark. I'm envying myself. I was standing with two amazing bills. They are an inspiring men that we can learn a lot from. And of course, with wives that I cannot tell you about, with Hillary Clinton, of course, and Tanya Austin, give them a big hand. Yes. So now I would like to introduce to you Ms. Barbara Bush, who is going to lead this panel. And dear Barbara, are we all going to sit or stay?
Great. I think my panelists are not up here, though. I think you might be leading a panel first. Oh, let's just do a panel.
You may be
Okay. All right.
So Sally is going to moderate a panel, and we're thrilled that President Clinton will be joining our panel as well. How exciting!
My question.
I'll work with him, Rich. Believe it or not, not everyone in America fights all the time. I do whatever any woman named Bush asked me to do. I just salute and stand up, whatever I'm saying.
We'd love to hear from you. If you can tell us a little bit more, if you would join us or maybe ask questions later for us.
Well, I think, it would be helpful if somebody in the audience would talk about how we could expand this and go to other countries and whether we could get other people to kick in bodies and power. But if you think about if there are 300 million people in the world without hearing, if 80% of them are in developing countries, if you now have a model that's doing 200,000 a year, this should be a priority for health ministries throughout the world and for others who have the capacity to give either money or manpower. The company itself would have difficulty making 300 million sets of hearing aids in 1 year or 2 years or 4 years. But we need a plan to do the whole thing. We need a plan to get to 500 million. And then I was very impressed with what the First Lady of Guyana said. It's an exceptionally well-organized country. But you could start with the small places. You could also start with the places that have been hit by disasters. The island nations of the Caribbean have the highest electric rates in the world and are the most vulnerable to climate change. You now have the American and the British Virgin Islands virtually wiped out. There ought to be a mission there that makes sure that you deal with this issue and get more publicity for it and do it everywhere in the world. I think the main thing I think you should do in this panel is figure out we got a model that works, that's 100% effective. But if you only leave it to them, even if they get to 300,000 people a year, that's 100 years. Or less if you discount the people that are in the developed world. If they get to 1 million a year, you see what I mean? You've got to figure out how you're going to take this to scale and more people are going to participate. Once you know something like this is possible and affordable, it becomes very difficult to justify not taking the appropriate action. So that's what I'd like to hear the rest of you talk about.
Thank you. We have with us an amazing person who will answer you. I'm honored to introduce to you Ms. Paloma Duran, Director of the Sustainable Development Goals Fund at the United Nations and UNDPA. Paloma Duran is the Director of the Sustainable Development Goals Fund, a UN mechanism that brings together UN agencies, national governments, academia, civil society, and business to achieve the SDGs. She has an extensive professional experience in government and international organizations. She acted as the United Nations Vice Chair of the UN Commission of Social Development during her time as Counselor of Human Rights in the Permanent Mission of Spain. Prior to her work, Chef de Cabinet for the Social Affairs Secretariat and as Vice President of the Women Institute of Spain. So she will answer to us. She has an extensive background, and it's also in her bio in front of you. And now she will tell us what the SDG Fund is about. How can they help with it? Where is the hearing aids fall into this? Please, Ms. Duran, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, the International Federation for Peace and also the Mission of Guatemala for the invitation to be here. You know, I was tempted to say, President Clinton, that I have the solution, but I think that it's so pretentious to say so. But, you know, at least I would like to share the experience that we have, because even if we started the work of the SDG Fund just 2 years ago, but now we are working only in 22 countries, and with 16 agencies of the UN, and we know now that we are improving the life of 3.5 million people, which is nothing compared with the needs, but I think that is something, is a kind of a seed. So I would like just only to share the methodology, if I can use this word, that we are using in order to be effective. One of the things that I think is important is that we put all the actors together in the sense that of course, the governments have some responsibilities. The private sector also have many responsibilities, and we need to engage them as actors, not only as donors. Also, we have civil society, we have academia, we have the local governments that sometimes are really the most important actors in the implementation of the programs. But the idea that we have is try to put all the synergies together. How to do that? Well, we changed a little bit the traditional methodology here in the UN in the sense that we want to ensure the national ownership of the programs in every country. We really want that every country and every community can make the decisions about the real needs. In the beginning, we started just working on access to water and sanitation, food security and nutrition, and inclusive economic growth. And now that we are receiving the reports from the first programs, the conclusion is that even if your focus is on education, or even if your focus is on food security and nutrition, the impact on health, for instance, is a very big one. The impact on education is a very big one, even if you are just focusing on food security and nutrition. So I think that really the first step is to try to prepare a kind of a mapping about the real needs in every country, according with every government and the local actors. We introduced two things that are, from our point of view, really very useful. The first one is the matching funds. If I give you $1, you have to find another dollar from the local actors. It doesn't matter if it's the local government, it's a private sector, it's an international organization working in the field, but at least with that, we are trying just to ensure that there is a network at the local level that are going really to promote the sustainability of the program when we finish with our actions. And then also to ensure that we, as a requirement, ask for the creation of a national steering committee where all the actors at the national level can really make the daily decisions about the programs. What I'm trying to say is that, of course, I think that there are many things that are very easy to do if we really work together. I'm not saying that now the governments have to be replaced by the private sector or by civil society. I think that each actor has a completely different role, but the idea is to try to do that together. How are we going to do that? We are trying to do that through the UN agencies in the field, mainly through the resident coordinator that, as you know, is really the ambassador of the UN in the field. So I think that there are many ways to do so, but at least our experience as an interagency mechanism here in the UN really are very effective. So if it helps, completely open to work with you or with anybody that are ready really to improve the life of the people in need. Thank you.
To ask Mr. Bill Austin to answer. He has a question for you.
Well, maybe not a question, but I think we have a lot of good people in the world and a lot of people who would be willing to contribute time that they have to be part of something good. We used to have a Peace Corps that was initiated under President Kennedy, and I think we need a HERE Corps for this project. And the big problem isn't scaling our ability to produce more devices that are needed. We can accomplish that. I can accomplish the scaling of the devices, but we have to do the training. And that's where Mrs. Austin has helped a lot by getting the school started in Africa and by making the efforts in the countries for sustainable work. If we get enough people trained, then we can feed that system with the number of instruments that are needed to satisfy that broader problem. But we have a big training effort in front of us. And I think that's what I see as the path to scalability is more training. It's the only way we can expand our output. We can't put them in baskets and mail them to any country. That won't work. Unfortunately, we could if it was food or something else, but this actually has to be interfaced personally with someone with some level of skill to make it work right. Excuse me.
I would like now to ask and introduce to you Ms. Barbara Bush. She is the CEO and co-founder of Global Health Corporation. Barbara Bush is co-founded Global Health Corp in 2009 to mobilize a global community of young leaders to build the movement for health equity. To date, GHC has fostered almost 1,000 young leaders who believe health is a human right and who take an innovative approach to solving some of the world's biggest global health challenges. 2015, Barbara was recognized as one of the first company's 100 most creative people in business. Previously, she worked at the Smithsonian and Red Cross, Children's Hospital in South Africa, UNICEF, Botswana, and UN World Food Program. Please welcome with me Ms. Barbara Bush.
Thank you, Sally. So I am happy that I get to speak after Bill, and I also get to brag about something that Tanny has been working on for years, and that is the fact that though they have been working on hearing missions for years, this past year, they graduated their first cohort of audiologists in Zambia. So I believe it was 11 audiologists. From across the continent of Africa. And my experience working in global health has been very people-driven. I learned never to speak on a panel with Bill Austin, and now I'm here again. One, because I'll just bawl and bawl and bawl because everything he says is totally inspiring. And two, just because you should only listen to Bill and never speak. But we have had the incredible honor at Global Health Corps to work alongside Starkey. And our model really takes advantage of the fact that young people want to change the world and have the skills to do so. And so at Global Health Corps, we competitively recruit young leaders who serve with us for a year solving complex health issues. And then throughout the year, they go through our programming focused on systems change, policy change, advocacy change, so that in 10 years, it'll be our alums sitting up here on this panel. Our alums will be the Minister of Health in their country. They'll be the Minister of Finance in their country. And what is relevant to me is two things. One is so much of the work that our fellows do are on the social determinants of health, which Paloma referenced before. And two is on connecting young people from around the world. Our fellows are from 10 countries this year. They're exceptional. We received 12,000 applications for our current 140 fellows. So they're incredible, and they're all 30 and younger. So they are the future of what the world will look like. And for us, it's been critical that they've gotten to work alongside Starkey, because we can work as hard as we want to every single day on solving health issues. But if someone can't access a healthcare system because they can't hear, that's not a nice to have, that's a must have. And so if we were to disappear today, if Global Health Corps were to be gone, our mission would live on, because we have 1,000 young leaders who are still doing this work. And they are from Rwanda and Haiti and Uganda and Malawi and the United States. And the world will not become less global, and we know that. And so much of what Bill talks about is understanding and listening and hearing each other. And I think that that is not the measurable part of what Global Health Corps does. I can talk to you about healthcare statistics that we've changed for hours, but to me, what the power really is a united group of young leaders from around the world who are willing to sit with each other and hear each other regardless of their cultures and their backgrounds. And that's what Starkey does, and that's what the opportunity to hear is. And if you don't have that opportunity, you don't get to engage in the world in the same way, and you lose the beauty of others. And so I just want to share a quote that I love. That actually was at the bottom of an email, and then I found out this whole woman's story. But there's no one you couldn't love once you heard their story. And that is so true. And at a time right now when maybe I should be embarrassed that I'm not sharing the statistics that I know on a panel at the UN, and I'm talking about love instead, I think that's actually what's most important right now in our world. And that, to me, is so much of what we're here for and why it matters to hear and listen and why Bill Austin, though I know with every single cell in his body, does not want to be honored right now and would much rather be standing under a tree fitting people with hearing aids, why Bill and Tanny deserve this honor, because it is fully about the incredible love that they give to other people that they may never cross paths with again, but it has changed their lives.
Thank you, Barbara. Our organization, for the ones who do not know, I would like to share a little bit about what I have been hearing now and what we do. We were created right after 9/11 in October, right here, after the horrific problem that, of course not a problem, it's a disaster that happened. And so we created this organization to educate people, to educate the world about each other, each other's culture, each other's religion. And we are in 5 continents doing that. The world is hungry to know about things they do not know. And ignorance is not a bliss. Ignorance is dangerous. And this is why we set out to educate. We brought people together. We started the first interfaith dialogue in my office building at Church Center. The first. I've started things that you and I care about but are too embarrassed to ask or too shy to talk about. So what we have done so far, I've educated about the youth and the programs. We have a youth program that I host, our organization hosts. To this date, 15,000 students for Model United Nations at the General Assembly. We have sent people all over to educate and talk about each other's religion, each other's culture. We do empowerment of women, and the women are the most that suffer. And we try to do the best we can to stop human trafficking. So with all the work that we have been doing, and with the people that follow us everywhere, takes in, and I always say, care about something to change it. You have to care and do not sit idle. Someone yesterday was asking me to do the quote again. And I said, I cannot do it. I just have to talk, and then it comes. And this is the energy that takes one person to do this. And this is what Bill Austin did. One person did the amazing work that he is doing. And Tanny Austin, you're the same. Bill Clinton, you're the same. It takes one to move the world and one to change it and also one to destroy it. So let's keep working together and build the better things in this world. And thank you again, Mr. President, for being here with us. Thank you. Thank you again. So please stay seated because President Clinton wants to leave.
I love you. You're great. Thank you for the other day, too. It was great.
Thank you, sir.
I know you've got more important things to do.
No,
Sometimes you have to do something.
nothing more important.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. You got the message right. The most important thing is not the statistics.
When you say that we're like grains of salt, and coming together, like being a shoulder to need and evil. But people like you, there's only 2 kinds of people in the world: good faith and not so good faith.
They don't know to find the books inside them.
Oh, you have it. I will do that.
Good people get on the phone. Yes. Thank you.
I think now we want to do the second panel.
Am I on this panel? No.
No.
No, I'm not.
You and I
Let me
are
get
not.
out of here.
Yeah.
You get to listen.
Okay, excuse me.
Yes. You can sit down with me.
So for everyone that is still in here, we would love it if you would take your seat.
Yes.
We have another great panel.
Oh, we have to change their names and do that.
Oh, I might switch with you.
Yeah. No, I'm supposed to leave.
Oh, okay.
I'll go sit down and then I'll come back. Take a little break.
Yes, I can see that.
Hi,
Hello,
I'm Barbara.
Barbara.
Nice to meet you.
Natalia, Isaac.
Yes, I knew which one you were. I think there's just a confusion. Good to see you, exactly. Hi, Jeffrey. Nice to meet you, Jeff. Is everybody? We're missing one person. Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to get started with our next panel. Now that we got to hear from Bill about the work that Starkey does, we are going to zoom out 30,000-foot level, and I am thrilled that we are joined with a number of experts in the hearing health space. So to begin with, please join me in welcoming our new panel. To my left, I have Her Excellency, Madame Sandra Granger, who is the First Lady of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. You heard from her earlier, and we'll go a little bit deeper. To my right, I have Professor I.M. Macharia, who is a lecturer and an ENT surgeon at the University of Nairobi in Kenya. To his right is Professor Jeffrey Larson, who is a lecturer and audiologist at Utah State University in the United States. And then to the far left is Professor Charlotte Chiong, who is a lecturer and ENT surgeon at the University of the Philippines. So please join me in welcoming these four incredible panelists. I have 3 hearing experts and 1 hearing implementer to my left, just to clarify that. So to begin with, I'd love to start with you, Professor. We are going to take a 30,000-foot view and then go in and speak about country and local specifics. But to begin with, I'd love it if you could go a little bit deeper and describe the current global hearing impairment disease burden.
Thank you, Barbara. First, let me thank Starkey Hearing Foundation because a few years ago, in 2009, when I first met Bill and Tanya Austin, I was a hearing expert, in quotes, but I didn't know what to do with my skills because I didn't have access to hearing instruments. And Bill and Tanya Austin came into Kenya, and they have totally changed my life. Thank you very much. Turning to the question of the burden of hearing loss in the world, the World Health Organization estimates that there are about 360 million people with hearing impairment. Of these 360 million people, 32 million are children below the age of 15 years. And what is worse is that the majority of these people, both children and adults, live in low and middle income countries. To further compound that problem is the fact that these are the countries with the lowest ratio of ear and healthcare workers to the population. So it's like a double tragedy that the greatest burden of disease is where there are the least workers in this field. Furthermore, we know that currently the commonest cause of hearing loss are preventable. In fact, more than 60%. And they are preventable with interventions that are not very expensive. They are not very highly technological. And they can be done at the lowest level of the healthcare system, that is at the community level. One of the emerging causes of hearing impairment is recreational noise, which is estimated that in the next few years, more than 1 billion young people between the ages of 12 and 35 years are at risk of losing their hearing loss because of exposure to excessive noise in the recreational spaces, where they have their personal listening systems, in sports, in music festivals. And hearing impairment from noise-induced sources is 100% preventable. Again, the preventive measures are cheap, they are simple, and that can be applied at the lowest level. So I think the model that President Clinton referred to earlier, the Stuckey model of intervention in hearing impairment, is a model that is implementable at the lowest level of the healthcare system. And that is really the beauty of it. So it's possible for us to change the burden of hearing loss in the world by implementing this simple, scalable, and sustainable model. Thank you.
Great. I'd love to follow up on that. As you mentioned, the burden is larger on low and middle income countries, and the need to address them locally. And so I'm curious if you can share more about some of your ideas on empowering local individuals to receive training or assist in providing hearing health care to their fellow citizens.
Again, I will refer to the model, the Stuckey model, and I think this afternoon we have heard the mention of the Stuckey Hearing Institute. And the Stuckey Hearing Institute has shown that you can train people who are sourced from the communities where Stuckey works, and they go back to the communities to work. One of our biggest problems in developing countries is that in the past we have sent our healthcare workers to be trained in developed countries, and they find that they have better opportunities there, they don't come back. So we drain a lot of resources, and we train these people. But when now we train individuals locally in our own countries, and remember that the healthcare systems also vary from country to country. The causes of hearing loss also vary from country to country. The interventions vary from country to country. So when you train these people locally, you are training them in the environment in which they will work. You've taken them from the communities in which they will work. You train them and they go back. Turning to the Stuckey Hearing Institute, it's an institute that is, the objective is to train like training of trainers. So the first cohort of 11 that were trained have all gone back to their country, and they are going to be leading hearing care programs, both in terms of giving the service and also training other people in there. So in terms of empowering local people to offer hearing care services, I think the model of making sure that the training takes place in the place where these workers are going to work is really a game changer. Then we don't need to send them out of our countries, and then they don't come back. But we are able to retain them. We have benefited from this in Kenya. When we realized that we didn't have enough audiologists, we started a training program, a diploma program in Audiology and Public Health Authority. And so far, all the people that we have trained, and they are from different African countries, they are all working in Africa. None of them
that are more high level. I was hoping you could tell us about the WHA resolution on ear care and hearing health that was recently ratified by member states. And I'm also curious if you can share your opinion of the potential impact of this.
Yes, in May 30 of this year, there's a World Health Assembly resolution that was passed, and this follows the former World Health Assembly resolution 1995, which stated that all countries will need to come up with national plans in order to incorporate hearing and ear care in their primary healthcare services. There's also a World Health Assembly resolution in 2005 that look at disabilities and the importance now of being able to have the Sustainable Development Goals accomplished, where 5 of 17 are related to disability, now makes a new resolution for hearing care, ear and hearing care, very important. So there was a lot of effort brought into this, and member states unanimously approved the resolution. NGOs were involved, and now we have a World Health Assembly resolution that says that we need to integrate ear and hearing care within the framework of primary health care. We also need to educate ear and hearing care professionals or manpower in each of the different countries. We need to collect the data, high quality data from these countries in order to inform policy. We need to be able to screen for all different chronic ear conditions, as well as in order to be able to develop, to implement, and also to monitor these screening protocols that we would like to adopt. We also need equity in access. All individuals should have access to all the services, to all the devices. There should be equitable access, affordability, and there should be cost effectiveness. And lastly, remember that Sustainable Development Goal number 3 says that healthy lives for all in all ages. And I think if we focus on this, we know that the potential impact is that nobody gets left behind, that everybody should think of hearing as a right to life. And if we adopt that, then we can always tell our government, you need to be able to take care of each one. Nobody gets left behind. And I think that's what the strategy that actually worked for the Philippines for our newborn hearing screening care program.
Thank you, and I'd love to follow up on something you just mentioned and something that was referred to in the earlier panel of the more years of your life that you can't hear, the more you are not included. And you just mentioned the Universal Newborn Hearing Program in the Philippines. And I'm wondering if you can tell us how you went about implementing that and what it could potentially look like for other lower middle income countries.
Well, it's actually a long story. Long story.
We have about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Just kidding.
I graduated from med school in the University of the Philippines in 1985. I had the opportunity to go to the US, a developed country. I was so amazed of the development in the hearing care field at that time. They told me that there was a cochlear implant available to restore hearing among the totally deaf. And I've never heard of this at all in all 4 years of medical school. So an associate professor there, Dr. Herman Jenkins, told me, maybe you will do the first cochlear implant surgery in your country. I thought that was really awesome, inspiring, and that led me to decide that I want to be an otolaryngologist. So I did my training at Harvard, at Mass Eye and Ear, and then University of Toronto to become a cochlear implant surgeon. When I got back, in 4 years we could do it. However, I realized how many deaf children will I be able to operate on until I retire. it's not going to work. So something switched. Then I realized I've got to have a public health perspective. I've got to be able to reach the newborn baby who's born deaf in the remotest island of the Philippines. And how will I do that? So then I said maybe I should really do newborn hearing screening. But we didn't have OAE machines, no AABR machines in the Philippines. Only the most expensive hospitals had those. And only the richest people had access to this. So I said, what can we do? So I went to Germany, learned about OAE, but then I said, we cannot adopt the protocol that you have in the US. Yes, you have 136, detect by 1 month, diagnose by 3 months, intervene with hearing aids by 6 months. And that's because we have shown that you need to be able to intervene at a very young age so that the child will be able to speak normally and be able to be educated and be able to read and comprehend. But it's impossible without OEE machines. However, with my own money, 10% of my income I used for research, hired somebody to do the screening, bought the machine, did the test in my hospital at the intensive care unit. 30% of the children in that unit had a potential or risk for hearing loss. 30% failed the test. Only 8% were brought back because lack of money for transportation. So we said, what can we do now? When we look at all the children being referred to us, they were being referred at the age of 3 to 4, not at 6 months, not at 3 months, 3 to 4 years old. So we said, we've got to do something about this. So when we realized that, we said, okay, we need to devise a community-based newborn hearing screening program. If they don't have the machines, let's validate an alternative test. We validated the BAH test. So young child after feeding, BAH. If the baby gets startled, maybe the child is able to hear. At least she's not profoundly deaf. Then we validated this and used a mobile app, developed a mobile app. Because in the Philippines, it's a texting capital of the world. We have more cell phones than people. One person can have 1 or 2 cell phones. So we're realizing that we said we have to use disruptive technology. So we're now in the process of being able to bring this out to the communities. We always say we need otoscopes. Department of Education even said, no, we don't have an otoscope. How can we look inside the ears? We said, well, let's use a pen light. We can teach you how to see the eardrum using a pen light. You just retract the eardrum, the pinna, backward, upward, outward, and you'll see the pinna, the eardrum. You don't need an audiometer. You can use a tuning fork. It will cost you $2. And we were able to do that. 5 to 7 million school children were actually screened using the pen light and tuning fork method. So we're really excited about this. We are saying that yes, you do have the technology. We will adopt them and be able to implement them in the hospitals. But since majority of our children are not born in hospitals but outside hospital facilities, because we're a country of 7,100 islands, we need to be able to harness technology as well as people in order to implement this. We just got a grant from our government to be able to use mobile technology, telehealth, to be able to implement this. And we're working with University of California, Davis, and Berkeley. So we're all excited, and we know that Starkey has been doing wonderful work in the Philippines. We're from the academe. We always say we don't have time to go to the communities. But now I realize maybe if I cannot do it, maybe I can have the students go there, empower the youth in my country so that they realize that, yes, there's another model, and this is a model that we'd like to adopt. And we'd like to thank you, Starkey, for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Thank you for sharing that. That is incredibly creative and inspiring. That was a wonderful story and a wonderful example of being creative and problem solving. I'd love to turn it over to you. And while Her Excellency is not a hearing expert, she is a hearing champion. And I was wondering if you can tell us more about the work that you've been doing and the lessons that you've learned in terms of partnering government with NGOs and the private sector to make an impact in Guyana.
Thank you, Barbara. Yes.
I think you're on, yeah.
Okay, yes. I think in my own country, the partnership of the kind we have achieved with the Starkey Hearing Foundation has reaped both tangible and intangible benefits, not only through access, but through the transfer of knowledge and technology. Because my country, like many other small Caribbean countries, is grappling with unsustainable debt, which also limits the ability to allow people access to the health and other social services that they need. So the vision of Bill and Tani Austin and Starkey Hearing Foundation has opened up the world of hearing to many persons, young and old, who were deprived of this opportunity before. And I tell you why. Starkey has brought together their own skills and the skills of the professionals in the audiology department of our public health ministry, who are now excited and energized because they no longer need to limit their care to the seriously or critically impaired patients due to limited funds. They now conduct regular outreach activities in all the regions of Guyana, providing aftercare by phone and in person. And their service is now backed up by the technical knowledge, service, and database of the Starkey Foundation. The government funds the transportation and other costs of bringing those people who have been identified as needing hearing assistance to Georgetown when the Starkey mission team arrives, where they can be examined by the experts and diagnosed, treated, and if needed, fitted with a hearing device. I mentioned earlier my mind-blowing experience of the young man who had no ears, who was able to hear at the age of 22. So that is one plus. In addition, our staff have been invited to Starkey's missions, and I am told they will be going on missions and training in other countries in the Caribbean. So they are not only exposed to more knowledge, they can also share their experiences and skills with people in other countries. I know too that our public sector professionals will accompany the Starkey team when it comes back to visit our vast remote hinterland regions when the team comes back again to Guyana. In addition to that, our service organizations, particularly the Lions Club, are happy to help with administrative and organizational elements of the Starkey missions, so that when the Starkey team comes, it can focus on delivering a professional service to people in need. And since its mission to Guyana last year, the word has gone out. Regardless of the appointments made, people line up hours before in the hope that Starkey's team will examine them, will admit them, and offer them the service that they so desperately need. And this is not only given to young people, but to old people from all walks of life, so that they're tested and diagnosed by Starkey Foundation. I have just come from the launch of the Spouses of CARICOM Leaders Action Network in Belize, and where we discussed how we could use our positions to impact public perception and action on issues affecting women and children. And we recognize that people are watching what we do and paying close attention to what we do in our little spheres. So it is therefore wise for us to promote and support the activities of organizations such as Starkey, which is bringing hearing to the world, and the magnificent job which Bill and Tani have done and continue to do with energy and love and patience and the care that they bring from their organization to the world so that we can all hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Professor Larson, I'd love to turn to you now. I was hoping you could share with us more about your experience working in the field of hearing health in low and middle income countries, and also if you can share any lessons for others that might be interested in volunteering to do the same.
Thank you, Barbara. I must start out by thanking the Starkey Hearing Foundation and Bill and Tanny for allowing me to come and be here. My goal in the last 20 years or so is really to be part of the training that Bill talked about. We have such a great need to train individuals that can go out and provide the care, because it is true that you can't just give a person a hearing aid. You really need individual attention and assistance for those people who are receiving the care. And what's a wonderful thing about the Starkey model is that they're working at a very low level directly with patients, and then also training local individuals. Professor Bacharya mentioned this, how effective that model is. I was involved in starting a university program at the University of Ghana, where we trained audiologists, and they're wonderful audiologists that have graduated from that program. But it's difficult because they had difficulty finding employment, and the lure of going somewhere else where they might be able to use their diploma to better their own lives is strong. Whereas the Starkey Hearing Foundation model does such a wonderful job at training local individuals who will stay in the country, who provide necessary care, and are able themselves to receive a mission or a way to serve in their own lives that is impacts their families, impacts many, many people. I think that this model of working with people to train them on how to provide hearing health care at a very low level also allows each country to decide for themselves how they want hearing health care to evolve in their own country. When we come in and we impose upon them our view of how things should run, it's sometimes difficult, and also usually doesn't work all that well. Whereas when we come in and we provide them necessary training and skills, and then they themselves can determine what works best within their culture, within their community, and within their country as to how to develop audiological skills to help their people, we see that they're amazing in their ingenuity and their creativity, and we empower them to do what they need to do. They're as capable as anyone in a developed country to be able to do these things, but sometimes they lack the training and the know-how. And if we can provide those things to them, the Starkey Hearing Foundation is providing them instruments to use and to help people. It's just an amazing partnership where I think people are able to flourish and blossom and create what works best for them. So when I think about advice for people who are volunteering or going out to try to help, I think partnering with a great organization is fantastic. That's one idea. And I think another thing is to look at people and see how you can provide assistance, provide training, provide help in a way that allows them to do what they need to do, but also gives them some freedom so that they don't have to do it exactly the way you do it. I know that there are many that I've worked with in the United States who are providing assistance. Oftentimes they balk at not doing things the way that we're doing them in the United States. And I think it's unfortunate because sometimes we are not, we hold ourselves back and we hold others back when we don't just provide them with the training that they need and allow them to determine for themselves how they want to use that training and evolve that training. So I applaud the efforts of Bill and Tanny and the whole Starkey Hearing Foundation. They've just done such a wonderful work here and provided a model that we can use and it will work into the future.
Thank you. Well, I know the burden of disease that Dr. Macharya mentioned earlier felt really large, but I'm feeling very hopeful knowing that these four folks on the panel and everyone in the audience and Bill and Tanny are working on these issues and training others and thinking of extremely creative solutions and using an incredible platform to engage others. So I would love it if you could all join me in giving our incredible panel a round of applause for the work they're doing and for being with us. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Sally for some closing remarks. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you, Barbara. This was an amazing session here, and we learned so much from everyone, from the academia part. And I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. And the more I learn, the more I am excited about the work that Mr. Bill Austin is doing and Tani is doing alongside of him. So we will be leaving you now, and I hope you learned a lot, and you will be doing something about it. Get more involved. You learned more. I know I did, as I mentioned. We all know that it is doable. It is something that we can take care of. We don't have to invent anything. It's already there. We just have to participate and help them. Help Danny Austin and Bill Austin and create what he was just explaining to you. We need more civil society engagement as well as teaching and making it sustainable. With this, I would like to leave you with a movie. It shows the work that they have been doing around the world. And if you're not touched enough, you will be even more touched when you watch it, because talking and doing are two different things. So I thank you all for being here this afternoon. I thank all the panel, and all of you have contributed amazingly. We learned from all of you, and thank you for being here. And I hope we will do this more and more, and we will all be part of this amazing work that Bill Austin is doing. Please give him a big hand and watch the movie.
The thing that you can give away and not be used to share, in fact, it grows.
You want to have the world here, and you know you've got to do it one person at a time, and you got to go to them.
Bill is so singularly focused on that one patient, whomever that is, whether it's a child in Africa or a truck driver in Nashville or the President of the United States.
The idea that when they see him working and him fitting a kid with a hearing aid and just seeing the eyes.
I've been incredibly impressed with Bill. He couldn't stand from the beginning when he needed to be worried about making money. He was still giving away hearing aids to people who couldn't afford them.
I didn't want to do what had already been done just because it was profitable.
Promised to do $100,000 a year. Over a 10-year period, more than 1 million people will have their hearing restored.
It's never hurt me by doing more than I thought I could.
Bill's passion is pretty contagious. It's pretty unbelievable to work with Starkey because you see within 1 minute how someone's life can be completely altered because they can hear.
See? Wow. All right.
He's the perfect definition, if you're looking up the word caring in the dictionary.
Bill and the Starkey Foundation, they help whoever.
We all burst into tears when she realized she could hear.
I think it's a good example of understanding that to whom much is given, much is required.
This was something he knew he needed to do. This is a lifelong passion.
It's one thing to be able to hear with your ears. It's another thing to be able to hear with your heart. I've never seen him in a bad mood.
He has so much energy. He's always got that smile on his face. But this man is changing people every day. How can you not smile?
Hello, how are you? People like Bill Austin should get the Medal of Freedom in America. He's an extraordinary man.
It's like the Johnny Appleseed of goodness that they just spread it all over the world.
I don't know any higher form of religion than a person that helps other people.
I much appreciate all your effort.
You're
can't be complete, you can't be full unless you attach yourself to others.
Bill's the love of my life. This is what he's meant to do.
You can affect humanity, you can affect the world, and I wanted to be part of it.
Here, and thank you for honoring us, and thank you for Mr. Bill Austin for sharing all of that with us. Aren't you inspired? So thank you again, and for those of us who are invited to the reception, we shall see you at 6 o'clock in the dining room. So please, thank you again, and you've honored us, and we will do this hopefully soon. Thank you.